Apparently nowadays having a buddy over for a beer in your own backyard can get you a visit from the police, at least if you've got a neighbor like mine. Picture this. A couple of ex-cops just watching football, nothing wild, just a little Saturday ritual, and next thing you know, you're supposedly running some neighborhood crime ring worthy of a 911 call. Welcome to Pinewood Heights, where my retirement took a left turn straight into the twilight zone thanks to Miranda Blackwood, the self-appointed sheriff of suburbia. I'm telling you, if you ever thought quiet neighborhoods were peaceful, you haven't met the wrong kind of neighbor. You know, after 8 years leading a SWAT team, I thought I'd earn my peace, maybe even a little boredom. I picked a nice place, did some consulting from home, figured the craziest thing I'd see was a trash can left out too long or some squirrel invasion. But no, my story starts on one of those perfect October Saturdays, blue sky, my team playing no obligations except to enjoy a game with my old friend Sam Rivera. Sam and I go way back academy days, all that now he's a big-shot real estate lawyer, and I was just looking forward to a little catch-up. Football, beers, you know how it goes. We're out back, game on, couple cold ones, just two guys yelling at the TV now and then. Maybe we got a little rowdy when our team scored, but come on, we're not talking a rave, just a couple middle-aged guys trying to remember what fun feels like. That's when I noticed Miranda watching us through her window camera phone up like she's TMZ and we're the scandal of the century. Sam cracks a joke about needing sunglasses for the paparazzi, but deep down I get that itch, the kind you only get if you've ever spent time in law enforcement. Something's off. About 20 minutes later, a city inspector shows up looking sheepish. Got a noise complaint, fellas. Supposedly a wild party excessive noise. He looks around, sees just us, the game, a few empty bottles. He actually laughs and just says, maybe keep it down after 9, all right? Real reasonable guy. But as he leaves, there's Miranda at her window, practically vibrating with rage that we didn't get hauled off in cuffs. That's when I realized she wasn't going to let this go. And right on cue, she marches over, shoulder-squared voice, loaded with that special blend of HOA authority and personal vendetta. This is a quiet neighborhood. Your gatherings are affecting property values. As HOA president, I'm monitoring this. Now, I never signed up for any HOA, didn't see it in the paperwork, but she's talking like she's got the FBI on speed dial. Sam starts sniffing for legal loopholes, his lawyer senses tingling. Turns out after a little digging, there isn't even a registered HOA for Pinewood Heights. Miranda, it seems, is running a one-woman show, manufacturing her own authority and now apparently her own fines because not 2 hours later, there's an official-looking notice on my door threatening a $650 in community violations if I don't pay up in 48 hours. At that point, even Sam's eyebrows shot up. This wasn't just annoying, it was criminal. This is a sophisticated forgery, Mason, he said, snapping photos, and she knows exactly what she's doing. We decided to document everything, and I texted Captain Morgan, yeah, the real deal from SWAT days just in case this spun out. Might need backup, I told him, half joking. But by Sunday morning, things took a sharper turn. Bright yellow flyers appeared under every door. Emergency HOA meeting. Security threats to property values. I had neighbors stopping me on the sidewalk, worried I was running some sort of crime syndicate out of my living room. Mrs. Peterson, sweet lady with teenagers, asked if her family was safe. Greg, ex-military, snorted and said he'd never signed an HOA anything in his 12 years here. But the pressure was building. Miranda was painting me as public enemy number 1. Come evening, I wandered down to the community center. Miranda had gone all out, banners, binders, even 4 guys in matching community security services uniforms. They look sharp, but you spend enough time around real teams, you can spot fakes. Their movements were too coordinated, too careful. Dylan, the ringleader, pitched a $150 a month security fee, sold the idea of priority response and property value protection. People were eating it up, scared and ready to hand over money to keep their homes safe from, well, me. But the part that really cut deep was when Miranda targeted my elderly neighbor Esperanza Morales. She said particular concerns regarding elderly residents. Basically, if she stayed friends with me, she was a liability. And that's when I decided no more playing defense. The next day, fake security goons showed up in a marked truck, tried to remove my flag, measure my property, and put on a show for the neighbors. But when they went after Esperanza saying her safety status was at risk, that was the last straw. I called in Captain Morgan, told him this was about to get real fast, but nothing could prepare me for Miranda's next move. Suddenly, there were strange cars in the neighborhood, police cruisers, an unmarked sedan, even a supervisor's SUV. But the way they spread out wasn't right for a real response. It was a show of force, not actual police work. When a supposed officer knocked on my door and tried to haul me in for interfering with community governance, the holes in his story were obvious to anyone who'd worn a badge. Sam was down the street documenting every second, and between the two of us, we caught every slip. Still, for the neighbors watching, it looked legit. I was the troublemaker finally being dealt with. Miranda had perfectly timed her emergency meeting to capitalize on the chaos. That night, the community center was packed. Miranda had her banners, her officers, and a room full of anxious residents. She spun her web of lies, photos of my house testimonies, and those fake police standing at the ready. Then right in the middle of her big speech, the lead fake officer announces he's detaining me and Sam. It was so absurd you'd almost laugh, except people really believed it. But that's when Esperanza, tiny as she is, stood up and called their bluff. "These are not real police," she said, voice clear as a bell. "Real officers don't arrest people over paperwork questions." The room went silent. Greg backed her up, pointing out badge mistakes, wrong protocols, everything a real cop would never miss. Mrs. Peterson, shaking, admitted she'd paid Miranda $400 last month in mandatory fees. Suddenly, everyone's phones were out. Real 911 calls this time, not Miranda's fake hotline. You could see the panic on the officers' faces as they realized they were boxed in. The real cops would be here any minute, and there was no clean way out. Sure enough, 10 minutes later, sirens cut through the night, and the real deal walked in, badges, gear, command, presence you can't fake. The takedown was quick. Miranda and her crew arrested for fraud, impersonation, elder abuse, the works. The look on Miranda's face when she realized her problem neighbor was a former SWAT commander with backup, absolutely priceless. But as the crowd settled, as people finally saw through the scam, Miranda managed to whisper something to Esperanza that turned her face ghost white. Whatever it was, it changed the air in the room, reminded us that even when justice is served, scars remain. In the aftermath, as the neighborhood tried to piece itself back together, I learned the truth from Esperanza. Turns out, years ago, Miranda's nephew had been arrested by me during a raid. He'd called both of us before he died in jail trying to turn his life around, and he always said I was the only cop who'd ever treated him with respect. Miranda, driven by grief, twisted her sorrow into a vendetta against me, building her elaborate scheme on a foundation of misunderstanding and pain. Eventually, Miranda confessed everything, wrote letters to her victims, even participated in counseling while serving her sentence. Our community recovered. Every stolen dollar was returned. With interest, we established a real transparent neighborhood association, and Esperanza became a hero, a living reminder that courage has no age limit. Greg led a legitimate neighborhood watch. The whole experience turned into a case study at the local high school, a lesson in critical thinking and the dangers of blind authority. And here I am 2 years later watching football with friends, grateful for the strange blessing that came out of chaos. Our neighborhood is closer than ever. We learned that real safety comes from knowing your neighbors, not from people selling you fear. If you're out there living somewhere with an HOA, or even just a nosy neighbor, maybe ask yourself who's really in charge and whether authority is earned or just assumed. Because sometimes the worst villains are made from pain, and the only thing that beats fake authority is real community. Let's keep this conversation going. Tell me in the comments what you think. Was justice served? Would you have spotted the scam? How should communities protect themselves from this kind of manipulation? And if you've got a story of your own, share it, because the more we talk about these things, the safer we all get.